Nick Taylor wins over the weekend. We had to come on for a pseudo emergency version of live GTC. Mark, you were on the call all weekend for PGA Tour Radio. What's going on, my man?
Happy New Year, Skulls. I feel like we're doing an emergency 9. You know when you walk off 18? Yeah, emergency 9. That's what this is. It was amazing because for the weekend, like on Thursday and Friday, at least in my view, I never had Nick Taylor in the movie of potentially winning this golf tournament. And then on the weekend, his name kind of started to show up and inch his way through the leaderboard. And our friends at Data Golf, who we use quite often, they had some incredible stats on just basically what the odds were of Nick Taylor. He had a 0. Check this out, Skulls. When he pegged it up on the 18th tee in regulation, Data Golf modeling, projecting models had a 0.4% chance or a 1 in 250 to look at it in different ways of winning this golf tournament. And he goes out to win this golf tournament. It's just so cool. I'm so happy for Nick. He should have been on that President's Cup team. I was been saying this for a long time. And that's not a shot at Mike or any of his assistant captains or anything. It was just an opinion. Those guys put their blood and sweat into that team, worked their butts off, leaned on analytics and things like that. But, I'm a feel guy, Skulls, and some things you can't chart. And Nick Taylor was 54th in scrambling in this golf tournament. 54th. Yet look at those up and downs when he needed it at the end to win a golf tournament. Some things you can't chart. Some things come from within. Some things like will, desire, guts. He is Captain Clutch. It was pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome for sure. The up and down on the second playoff hole in particular from 48 yards. I was squeamish, Mark. We'll get to news and headlines here shortly. I was squeamish when Taylor pulled out hybrid from the fairway bunker. I thought this could go poorly. And sitting with the people I was watching with, I said, this should be 8-iron. This should be 7-iron. Just get it back into play. And he wasn't pleased with the way he hit the golf ball, but it went straight. It was a great layup, wasn't it? Hitting the hybrid fat, pretty much. It looked like he chunked it a little bit. But to have those hands from 48 yards, landing it probably 20 feet short and rolling up 2 feet past the hole, that shot in particular really stood out to me.
Yeah, I don't. To your point, Adam, 48 yards. No golf professional in the world is typically usually looking to give themselves 48 yards, right? He was trying to chase it up to the spot. Listen, if he got it on the green, that was bonus. But I really think he was thinking he could get it to the spot that he had it on the previous hole, right? Just underneath the green. He knows the pitch. He just hit it. Yada yada yada. The one thing that TV doesn't do justice to that shot in that bunker is it's subtle, but that ball was slightly above his feet as well. And it's very subtle, but that ball was above his feet. So he's trying to hit, to your point, a hybrid out of the bunker with the ball above his feet. And he's trying to hit a bit of a high cut there because there's a lip that kind of protrudes in to the right. So the more draw that you go to take on that shot, the more likelihood of you maybe catching that lip on the way out. That ball has to come out left and has to work back. So you've got a hybrid from a sandy lie with the ball above your feet in a playoff that you're trying to hit a cut against the slope. There's so much going on there that could go wrong. I thought he was, to your point, he was very fortunate to even get it in the spot he did, even though no one wants a 48-yarder. But, I mean, wow. Again, though, when the chips are down, throw out all the numbers. Throw out how he's been playing. Throw out what he's done in the last 6 months. Nick Taylor, when he sniffs it, there's not a better Canadian, including Brooke Henderson. We give Brooke Henderson her flowers all the time on this show, and deservingly so. She is the best Canadian professional golfer on the planet. She is the best Canadian professional golfer this country has ever produced. Full stop. However, the best Canadian professional, when there is blood in the water, when they think they can get a hand on the trophy, is Nick Taylor. Full stop.
It's very well said, and I really can't argue any of that. And we're going to play Bob's interview with Nick Taylor in our next segment, and he gets into this, but he was 1 over through 7 holes and then went on a birdie barrage in that final round. So, Mark, we spoke at length during 2024 after winning the WM Phoenix Open, the lead up into defending his title at the RBC Canadian Open, how difficult of a week that was, his quest to make the Canadian Olympic team, the International President's Cup team, where it just seemed like it was all weighing on him so much. But for lack of a better term, do you think he just started to freewheel during the final round, saying, I don't really think I have much of a chance at winning this thing, so I might as well floor it here and try to birdie every hole? And aside from those 2 short birdie misses, which we'll get to, he certainly did that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain benefit, don't you think, to your point, Adam, of standing there on the first tee on a Sunday knowing that you only need 1 gear, and that's full throttle. The pars aren't going to get it done. So you do free will it. And listen, for everybody other than the final group, the entire golf tournament is playing with house money in a sense. They're all freewheeling it because they're all having the same attitude, to your point, Adam. Only JJ Spawn, only Steven Yeager, and only really Eric Cole to a certain point. You know, eventually Cole kind of backed himself out of this golf tournament. But Yeager and Spawn were in a way plodding away, certainly making birdies, but you could tell on the back 9 when things started to tighten up how they got very defensive around 13 and 14, how the situation, the moment, trying to win a golf tournament, it's early in 2025. These people do have rust. Don't kid yourself. The only way you feel comfortable in a competitive situation inside the ropes on the PGA Tour is to have yourself there more often. You take 6 months away from it, and it feels like a new planet, even though you've done it for 15, 20 years. But if you've done it all season long, you know that the only way to get better at competitive golf is to be in more competitive golf. You really saw that. Nick Taylor is just a different animal. You mentioned the putting. You were texting me. I was on the air, and I was like, yeah, those strokes didn't look good. And then he started the one on 16. I mean, he's just hitting it with so much pace too, right? Because you start to lose confidence. And you start to just, okay, well, if I lose confidence, I'm just going to, I feel tentative. So instead, the opposite of tentative, I'm going to jam it in. So what do? You eliminate the proper pace. Proper pace opens 4 doors to the hole. You know, you jam it in, you've got 1 door, the front door. You wave at it, you got no doors, right? So you eliminate the proper pace and you go to the opposite side of the spectrum and start to jam things in. And that never works either, which is why it is so amazing to me, Adam. Again, things you can't chart, things analytics will never tell you. You and I have a sample size of an hour and a half of bad putting, bad pace, poor decisions over 6-footers. And then what does he do in the first playoff hole? Right in the heart. Then what does he do to win? Pours it in from 4 feet in the heart. There's a switch in his brain when the chips are down. He went toe-to-toe with Phil Mickelson, won. He went toe-to-toe with Scotty Scheffler and John Rahm, almost won. Playoff again last year. Listen, we don't have to articulate what happened at the Canadian Open. Everybody knows that. His last 3 wins of 5 have come in playoffs. This is Captain Clutch, and this is why. Listen, Nick Taylor on the team in Montreal would not have changed any outcome to the President's Cup. President's Cup was going to the American team. Full stop. No, there's no difference there. That being said, he still should have been there. And this is why.
This is why, for sure. And I haven't told you this, but I'm actually heading to our friend John Sawatsky tomorrow for a little in-depth look on putting. And we ran a segment with John late in 2024. We'll do so again at some point in 2025. But to me, Mark, those 2 strokes that Nick Taylor had on 15 and 16, those short birdie putts, I'm not sure if jabby was the right word. Might have been. But he was hitting up on the ball aggressively. He was really hitting above the equator of the ball, so it would really sort of jam to the right. But to have the mental fortitude to bounce back the way he did. Now, the birdie putt on the first playoff hole, that was going in with some pace. Maybe it would have gone 2.5 feet past the hole. But even like the one on 16, that went arguably further past than the 3.5 feet he had initially for birdie. But to have the stones, to have that ready to rock, good for Nick Taylor. And we'll think now the next step here, right? I mean, he's back at the Masters. You wonder how much is he going to learn from what happened last year at the Masters when expectations were pretty high for him, right? And he faltered in all of the major championships. So you wonder, another lap around Augusta National, maybe we see Nick Taylor a chance to contend over the weekend at Augusta National.
Yeah, and there's so many things that don't make sense about Nick Taylor, right? Like there's literally so many. We could sit here now and have a conversation way more of what doesn't make sense. And this is why it was hard for them to go, yeah, we're going to give Nick Taylor the nod and put him on a President's Cup team. Because you go, to your point, Adam, Nick Taylor's won now at Sony. That's a very different golf course at YLI. Okay. Then he won at Pebble. Okay. Similar golf course to YLI. Then you win at TPC Scottsdale. Nothing even remotely close at TPC Scottsdale than Pebble Beach and YLI. A completely different golf course. And then you look at players that have done well at TPC Scottsdale. And Nick Taylor has done well now for multiple years in a row, including a victory at Scottsdale. And look at the names that have done well there, and then look at how they perform at Augusta. John Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, Ricky Fowler's performed well at Augusta, hasn't won, but has performed well there. Hideki Matsuyama. There is a long line in the last decade of players that have won at Scottsdale that have also won at Augusta National. Here's a tip for you. Get a little inside baseball for our audience this year, a little foreshadowing. What are the things I look at when I make my Masters selections? I look at Century and I look at Scottsdale. Because historically speaking, over the last decade to 15 years, if you look at who won Century and who won Scottsdale, quite often you will find your Masters champion, or at least someone who will seriously contend. Okay? Nick Taylor, then, to your point, Adam, goes to Augusta, and so I can't. So to answer your point, I can't tell you. Because there's so much that doesn't make sense to about Nick. I can't tell you that now that he's playing well again and he's got the win, I can't tell you that he's going to go to Scottsdale, have another good week. I believe he's going to play well in the desert. He seems to play well in the desert. Fine. I don't know if that's going to translate to anything else. I don't know if this particular win is going to translate into anything else. I hope so. I hope this is fruits from his labor in the last 6 months is what I'm hoping what this is. All I can tell you is how I feel about this, is if he gets near the lead again at some point this year, he is likely going to either win or come very close to winning. If he's got a sniff, get out of the way. That's all I can tell you. Now, when that sniff's coming with Nick, who knows, right? But I don't know. If this is just, a blip on the radar early in the year and goes away, it's unfortunate. I hope not. But I'm hoping, I'm assuming you're hoping, that this 4 days that progressively got better is everything he's been grinding out since July, August last year the glue is finally sticking.
Totally. And I think he'll learn as well from what happened last year. After winning the WM Phoenix Open, he had a shot through 36 holes at the Players' Championship, faltered over the weekend, and just had one top 25 finish in a stroke play event since last year's win at the WM Phoenix Open, which it's crazy. It really is crazy, right? And now he jumps from 73rd to 29th in the official world golf ranking. We know all the perks he got. So, and we even spoke, Mark, in our Festivus special, in our Year in Review TV special too, that Nick said to Bob too in those shows as well, it was a good year in 2024 because he won, but then the rest of the year was sort of MIA. This is one of the most shocking victories I think we've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't make sense. And that's the thing about Nick Taylor. Good luck making sense of it. All you know is if it's gut check time, there's no better Canadian if it's gut check time. That's all you know. Now, hopefully, again, this pays off. Here's the good news, too. We're going to go now pretty quickly to some golf courses that he has great success on. I mean, he's now moved into the Aon Swing 5, okay? He's in the Aon Swing 10. So we know he's going to get to Pebble, where it's a signature event, and he's won before on Pebble Beach. Beautiful. Okay? We know he's now playing the Genesis if they play the Genesis. That's a whole, our thoughts and prayers to everybody in LA. I've got family there. I've got friends there. It's just horrible. The last thing anybody really cares about right now is a golf tournament out there. I just don't think it's going to happen. And it certainly won't happen, I don't believe, at Riviera. So we'll keep our eye on that. But Nick's in that event if he qualifies. We've got Scottsdale coming up, where you will be for your bachelor weekend, young man.
We'll get into that big time closer to the
You'll be our correspondent on the ground. Hello? So we've got Nick Taylor going to go there. So you know what? If this was just not, a surprise 36 holes out of the blue from nowhere, and this is really more what I'm hoping it is, which is like, hey, this is what I've been doing for 6 months, trying to work my way back to this, then we're coming to some really good golf courses for Nick Taylor where he's had huge success before.
It's a great victory going forward, and Bob now joins us. And Mark, I know you've got somewhere to be. You've got to run right now. Mark, we'll let you go.
Happy New Year, boys. We'll see you guys on the 27th.
2 weeks today. We're back live. We'll be back live 2 weeks today. Mark, thanks for your time. Weeksy, good to have you back on the show. As Mark and I were speaking about, it's an emergency edition of Live GTC. We're back live in a couple of weeks, but we're live now talking about Nick Taylor. Weeksy, what's going on?
It's good to have emergencies. I was talking to somebody about how the fact my Sunday nights are often judged by how the Canadians are doing, and Sunday dinner often gets interrupted because we have to chase down the story, and we get a one-on-one with Nick and everything, and it's a good problem to have. It's nice when your Sunday dinner gets postponed, I guess is the best way to put it. But it was great to watch Nick win, and really nice. We had talked about him last week on SportsCenter. Just need a little confidence, just need to get the ball in the hole, see the ball go in the hole. And that's exactly, I think, what happened. But, man, is this guy a clutch player? It's just hard to think of anybody who wins in the style he does more often than him.
And as we discussed on Speed Golf, too, after winning the WM Phoenix Open last year, he struggled mightily throughout the season. So for you, just how surprising was it to see Nick on top of the leaderboard, given the way he had played for the last 11 months?
I kind of thought to myself, should we be surprised or not? Because Nick, it wasn't that long ago that Nick's end of Nick's season was always about just trying to battle to stay inside the top 125. And then he kind of won at Pebble Beach, holding off Phil Mickelson down the stretch. He won, the Canadian Open, wins Phoenix. And all of a sudden, Nick Taylor becomes the guy that I think a lot of us always thought he would be. He was the number one ranked amateur in the world. He was a great player, has the record as the low scorer in the U.S. Open by an amateur. We thought he was going to be this guy that we're seeing now. But still, I got to admit, I'm a little surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised, as I think a lot of us are. But I think it's great to see him back in form. He's playing again this week, by the way, so maybe he can go back to back. That would be pretty cool.
That'd be really cool to see him contend again, and we know what goes in when you play back-to-back weeks after a win, the long flight as well, which he'll have to take into account. But for Nick Taylor, it was a roller coaster round, which he gets into in your interview, which we'll play in our next segment. But what did you think, Bob, when he missed short birdie putts on 15 and 16, to be able to bounce back the way he did and almost freewheel it, for a lack of a better term, especially even after he was 1 over through 7, he thought his chances of winning the golf tournament were perhaps over. But to have the stones to bounce back the way he did, just how impressive was that by the Canadian?
It's remarkable. And, everything has to come together. As good as he was with that chip on the 72nd hole to get the eagle, you don't expect the last two guys spawn, and you don't expect them to come up and just make pars on that par 5, which is a relatively easy par 5, especially in their situation, especially taking half an hour to play that last hole. And it's everything has to come together, and I think Nick had talked about that in his press conference a little bit. But it's remarkable to see it work out in his favor. And again, I think maybe even on the second playoff hole, he hits it in the bunker. We're thinking Echavarria is probably going to be the guy who's going to pull it out. But again, he never says never. He's always likes to battle and always likes to be there and have a chance and put the pressure on the other guy, and he did it again.
I was telling Mark, too, I got squeamish when I saw Nick Taylor pull out hybrid from the fairway bunker in the playoff hole, because we know how much can go wrong when something other than an iron comes out from a fairway bunker, and Nick didn't like the way he struck the shot. Clearly he mishit it. I think he hit it a little fat, but it was a good layup, right? And to hit the shot he did from 48 yards to 2 or 3 feet, to me, Bob, that was one of the most impressive shots, other than the chip in, obviously, on the 72nd hole, that he hit during that final stretch.
Yeah, that shot out of the bunker, you're right. I think he probably hit it a little fat. It looked like he might have hit it a little high on the face as well. It kind of plopped up in the air a bit. I mean, the important part about that to me was how he missed it. He left himself in a good spot, and it wasn't sort of like deep rough or whatever to play the next one. If he planned that, I'm not really sure, but he said he'd played that hole and that pin placement a number of times over the years, so he kind of knew what to expect. And man, it's that when that chip came up, whatever it was, a foot or a foot and a half from the cup, it was. I think Echavarria's hands just kind of got a little bit sweatier, and when you saw that putt, it was clear that Nick was in the driver's seat.
Certainly was. And Bob, before we let you go and we hear your interview with Nick, a lot comes with this victory, doesn't it? Now we're going to have a complete foursome at Augusta National for the Masters of Canadian players, aren't we?
Yeah, maybe we'll have a few more. Let's fill it up. We don't care if we have 6 or whatever in there, right? We still got some time for these guys to win. Adam Hadwin's playing at a golf tournament where he shot 59 this week, so maybe he can pull something through too. But yeah. It's great to see. It's great to see the benefits that Nick's going to get, some more signature events and some major championships. So everything coming up rosy right now for Nick Taylor.
Jumps from 73rd to 29th in the official world golf ranking with the victory.